Hi, this is Dr. Archibald. Let's talk about style. This is the first video mini lecture. So let me talk to you about style, specifically writing style. Many people think style has to do with grammar and correctness. It does, but that's not all. I have always resisted grammar as a practice. It's the rules, what's right and wrong. I learned grammar by reading and reading from a young age. I've tried to practice the rules of grammar, and I've been lucky that my examiners over the years have been kind to me when it comes to my infelicities, concerning grammar. I've come to understand that a comma splice, among other errors, is not always wrong, and it can be part of a certain style. As an English teacher, I have a prejudice for good grammar and plain style. I mark fragments in comma splices and worry about clarity and coherence in my students' papers. For me, it's it's an automatic response to do these things. I want student prose to be clear and direct. That's why I chose to teach college English and composition and not be a high school English teacher, so that I wouldn't be called on to correct every sentence that I read. I want to deal with your ideas and arguments. That's where the payoff for me is with student writing. I want my students to have an idea and promote it for some purpose, for someone. Sentence level mechanics should be the invisible part of the process. Decisions. Instead, in this class, we will determine the nature of one's decisions to use a fragment or a comma splice, or some trope or some syntactical scheme like repetition, because it is stylistic and rhetorically effective for the composition and for some reader. So let's talk about the reader. So you have to ask the question: is your reader ready to accept your comma splice as a motivated piece of style? Initially, you will have to make the argument in an analysis for your comma splice, or in a kind of a reflection when you go back and revise. That's when you're going to determine whether the comma splice works rhetorically and stylistically. So once you have made this argument to yourself, really, as 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 the writer, then you can go ahead and make it part of your style. But think about it. You will have to establish a certain credibility for your writing before a comma splice will be accepted. They must be they must do something in the text that justifies the attention it gets, because the comma splice will get attention. So you're going to do it for a particular effect. So let's talk about the plain style. To get to this place where you can have a more muscular style, we first need to talk about plain style. Plain style is what people talk about when they talk about style. Williams promotes plain style, as did Aristotle before him. The other authors we will read, especially Holcomb and Killingsworth, say that there are other moves that writers make outside of this recognized plain primary style that warrant our attention. Practice. We will first learn the rules associated with plain style. We will practice recognizing and using plain style, and that is what the Williams book provides. H and K gives us a more nuanced take on style and lets us practice certain variations in a mode of liberal application of the varieties of style. Plain style has been foisted on us as the only alternative. You will learn that it is not the only style. Your style. You probably think that your style has just as much right to exist, but you might be making the same mistake that the plain stylists make, that one style fits all. If you have a particular style, it has probably grown organically out of the combination of your reading and your personality. Since we are talking about writing that should reach a reader, then what your reader has to say is important, or what they think, or their expectations. You wouldn't be in this class if you just wanted to write for yourself. Or if you do, then you also need to write for others. That's what this class is asking you to do, is to write for multiple audiences. The idea here is to be flexible in your writing in relation to the purpose and audience. That's how you communicate. You try, and that's a part of, of acquiring a particular style to do this kind of communication. You try to understand the expectations of your audience and you write with those expectations in mind. What to pay attention to. One's ideas are not served very well by a style that doesn't operate with full consciousness of its effects on a reader. Style informs practice and vice versa. So together we will work on style that is self-conscious and motivated, a style that can be argued for using vocabulary that we can mutually agree upon. Both Williams and Holcomb and Killingsworth both offer, among others, will give us that vocabulary of style. Thank you.